I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents.
Is it a legal matter? We'll get an introduction to church law.
It really affects everybody whether they realize it or not.
All hands on deck. It's a different look at the priesthood.
Hands are actually very, very expressive, and the more we've done the project, the more we have come to truly appreciate that.
And they're young people doing church ministry, and they came together this weekend in Astoria.
We really put so much of ourselves into it, into the preparation for it, that we enjoy the Mass that much more.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. We begin tonight with a look at the oldest functioning legal system in the Western world, one that forms the very backbone of Catholic law, but which remains a mystery to many people in the pews.
It is the Catholic Church's Code of Canon Law, and last night some people in the diocese gathered to help crack the code, if you will, and gain a better understanding of how it works and what it all means.
Canon law is the internal legal system of the church, and it basically governs how the church lives.
To see how marvelous and succinct the Code of Canon Law is, how this governance is true throughout the whole world.
The system of law, which is the basis for canon law, is Roman law. It was the law of Rome, of ancient Rome, and the way ancient Rome understood the law. The system of law that we're used to in this country is common law.
It affects everybody, really. It really affects everybody whether they realize it or not, because, for example, it has to do with the sacraments and the celebration of the sacraments, and every Catholic person is in a very real, direct way involved with the celebration of the sacraments.
You know, what rights do lay people have in the church? What are the responsibilities of a lay person in the church? Why did the church have annulments and not divorces? Who makes the decisions in the church and why? And so all these things are covered by canon law. The question came to me was, why can't we have a little kind of a mini course on just some basics of canon law? So we decided to put together something called Canon Law 101 for people who have always wondered about some of these issues and questioned them. I firmly believe in adult education, and that you know, Jesus blessed children and taught adults, and we teach children and bless adults. So we're trying to reassert that balance.
Doing these kinds of classes is something I really enjoy, because I like to be able to help people understand things better in the church. And as we said before, there are a lot of misunderstandings about the way things operate in the church, the way things are run. So this is a great opportunity to kind of clear things up and help people to kind of demystify some of the things that they think are not really understandable. So canon law really touches at the heart of everything we do as Catholics, so every person too.
I remembered a joke that somebody once told me, that the New Testament is what Jesus said, and the Code of Canon Law is what Jesus meant to say.
Well, last night's was the first of 3 classes on canon law at Immaculate Conception Parish in Astoria, Queens. The next 2 will take place on November 16th and 23rd.
A little time to get there. Well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead, including some surprising news about the sainthood cause for Fulton Sheen. We'll have that and the rest of the day's headlines when we come back. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, it's Mass for young people by young people.
Sounds good to me, but first, let's turn to the day's headlines. Just days after a deadly massacre at a Catholic church in Baghdad, militants attacked Iraqi Christians again today. At least 5 people are dead and more than 30 others hurt after roadside bombs exploded in predominantly Christian neighborhoods. Police said a total of 11 bombs went off within an hour of each other. Many of them damaged or destroyed houses owned by Christians. The bombings come just days after the attack on a Catholic church that claimed the lives of 56 people. A group linked to al-Qaeda claimed responsibility for the first attack, but there has been no claim of responsibility in the latest round of bombings. In Iran, a Catholic cardinal hand-delivered a letter from the Pope to President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad Tuesday. The Vatican will not talk about the contents of the letter. Cardinal Jean-Louis Tauran, who is president of the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, delivered the letter during meetings on Muslim-Christian relations. Ahmadinejad wrote a letter to Pope Benedict in October in which he said he hoped to work with the Vatican to curb religious intolerance and stop the increase of secularism. Meantime, an estimated 12,000 American Muslims will make the annual pilgrimage to Mecca next week. They are expected to join some 2.5 million other Muslims from all around the world November 14th through the 18th. The Saudi Arabian city is the site of an annual pilgrimage that Islam requires followers to complete at least once in their lifetime. And back here at home, dozens of schools in the Archdiocese of New York could close as part of a restructuring plan. Officials released a list of 31 elementary schools and 1 high school considered to be at risk. The Archdiocese says school leaders will meet with the Reconfiguration Committee to share their concerns. If the schools are still considered at risk at the end of the process, the Archdiocese says it will eliminate or significantly reduce funding, and the schools are likely to shut down.
Well, the group trying to propel Archbishop Fulton Sheen towards sainthood is suspending its efforts. The Diocese of Peoria, Illinois, where Sheen was ordained as a priest in 1919, opened the cause for his sainthood in 2002. This week, though, leaders said they were suspending their work because the Archdiocese of New York will not turn over Sheen's remains. Sheen is buried in the crypt at St. Patrick's Cathedral. He's best known for hosting popular radio and TV shows. Peoria Bishop Daniel Jenke says he hopes the New York Archdiocese will take up the cause for Sheen's canonization. Well, meantime, just a couple of days after 5 Anglican bishops announced their intentions to become Catholic, the leader of the Anglican Church will visit the Vatican. We get details from Rome Reports.
Anglican spiritual leader Archbishop Rowan Williams of Canterbury will visit the Vatican on November the 17th. His visit is in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Pontifical Council for the Promotion of Christian Unity. Metropolitan John Zizioulis of Pergamon, representing the Ecumenical Orthodox Patriarchate of Constantinople, will also attend. The Pontifical Council for Christian Unity was founded by Pope John XXIII in 1960 to promote dialogue between Christian religions. Swiss Bishop Kurt Koch is currently the president of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity.
Well, finally, World Youth Day is still 9 months away, but we now know what it will sound like. Organizers released the hymn for the event this week, and Rome Reports gives us a listen.
Firm in our faith, we walk in Christ. So the World Youth Day official melody begins. The hymn and the rest of the World Youth Day soundtrack are important symbols of the event that attracts young people from all over the world. This year's event will take place in Spain's capital city of Madrid in August of next year. The soundtrack was released on the eve of the feast day of the patroness of Madrid, the Virgin of Almudena. The lyrics were written by the World Youth Day General Coordinator, the Auxiliary Bishop of Madrid himself, Monsignor Cesar Franco. The verses were meant to demonstrate the humanity of Christ and aim to bring that humanity closer to young people. The music was interpreted in Spanish by the Youth Orchestra of the Community of Madrid and the Youth Choir of the Escolanía de Escorial. The piece has been taped in 3 versions, a liturgical one, an instrumental one, and a pop version. For now, you can download the music for free and read the English translation on the World Youth Day website. The music will be distributed on November 19th.
Download it, put it on your MP3 player, carry it around with you.
Sounds good, literally.
Well, stay tuned. There's more currents coming up.
Just ahead, it's already been given a hand. Many, actually. Priests like you've never seen them.
Hands are very interesting. I mean, they were on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, for heaven's sake. So people are fascinated by hands.
Welcome back. Well, some months back, photographer Stephen Golder from the Archdiocese of Atlanta embarked on an unusual project to capture the priesthood and priests in a way they haven't been seen before.
The result is called These Hands Bring Me Jesus, and not long ago, our Natalia Ortiz sat down with Stephen Golder to talk about his work.
Stephen Golder, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us about this photography project. It's called These Hands Bring Me Jesus. And so I guess the title is pretty self-explanatory. It's got to do with hands. But what's the inspiration behind the project?
Well, like all good things in my life, the inspiration came from my wife. She was listening to Father Karapi's CD, one of them, and he was telling the story about St. Francis healing a priest. And the story goes abridged here, that he's going through a town and the priest is really not doing everything he should be doing in his priestly way as he should. Have we heard that before?
Right.
Anyway, common problem sometimes. But St. Francis is old, he's got the stigmata, he can barely walk, and the townspeople meet him. They say, you've got to come and do something about our priest, please. You need to pray for him to help him and help us. And so he goes to the door, kneels down. The priest comes to the door sort of shaking and opens the door, and there's St. Francis there. So St. Francis takes his hands and says, all I know and all I need to know is that these hands bring me Jesus. Whereupon all is well with the world and the priest is healed and everything is fine. Well, Barbara came home and said, you are going to go on a project and we're going to photograph priests' hands for the year of the priest. And we were having a celebration of that, you know, throughout the church, but the Archdiocese of Atlanta was also doing this. And so we had to get in touch with the Archdiocesan office, get permission and help to get in, and because, you know, you come up to a priest and say, I want to photograph your hands, they kind of think you're crazy. What are you talking about,
right? Why?
Yeah, exactly. And most of them still did, even when prompted by the Archdiocese.
So I guess, I mean, that answers the question as to why the hands, but if you could elaborate a little bit more on why is the focus on the hands?
Well, they do bring us Jesus through the Eucharist, and without the Eucharist, we've got no church. So, and hands are actually very, very expressive, and the more we've done the project, the more we have come to truly appreciate that. And every priest brings to everything his own particular style and way of doing things, and hands are very interesting. I mean, they were on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, for heaven's sake. So people are fascinated by hands, and so that's been the focus of it, but not just liturgical things. We wanted to photograph priests also doing everyday things, like riding a motorcycle.
I think it's called Highway to Heaven is one of them, correct?
Exactly. Working on a computer. We've got one that we took of Bishop Zarama holding his iPhone, and we titled it iBishop, you know. So it's been a lot of fun.
Very clever. So how many pairs of hands have you photographed until now?
I've kind of lost count of them, actually. I think probably 15 or so. And we've had a varying reception. We've had 1 or 2 priests spend literally 3 or 4 hours with us, an entire afternoon on a Saturday before Mass, you know, going through the whole liturgy, stopping and starting and backing up, and with me standing there, you know, mocking up the liturgy. We wouldn't dare take these during an actual service, mind you. But
that was my other question.
Oh no, but we're mocking this up. And we just had some incredible experiences with these priests doing this.
How do you select the hands that you're going to photograph? I mean, I'm sure it's something that you just don't. I mean, do you walk around and say, hey, are you a priest? Can I photograph your hands?
Well, part of it came from the Archdiocese. They would say, well, this priest would be interested in doing this. Okay, that's kind of where it got started. But as we expanded it, we realized we had some younger priests and we wanted some older priests for balance. And so when we would have a visiting priest, for example, at our parish, one of them was quite elderly and a wonderful fellow. And his hands are obviously showing his age. And so we've tried to use those in juxtaposition with the hands of a younger priest in the same position.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So what's your next project?
Well, we've expanded this one. It's kind of a continuation of the project. We did the priests for the year of the priest, and we can maybe talk a little bit in a minute about how we use that so far. But the next thing is going to be for vocations. And so we've kind of expanded it to religious, and that's why we're here to see Deacon Greg, because we want to do deacons.
Our news director, for those of you. He works behind the scenes, right?
Yeah. So we're expanding it to vocations this year.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit about what you wanted to expand on a little earlier.
Well, the way the project has grown and been used was far beyond my expectations. You know, I thought I was going to take a few images and maybe put together a little book for a fundraiser for the vocations office. We've done that, and you can link to the website and see that. But Deacon Dorner down in the Archdiocese of Atlanta, who was in charge of the Eucharistic Congress that we have every year down there, said, you know, I've got to give a talk. Can I use some of your images for about a 7-8 minute slideshow? Well, all of a sudden my little 10, 20 image project turned into hundreds, because when you figure 3 seconds a slide, 7 minutes, you need quite a few images. And so we ended up going through the thousands of images that we'd taken to come up with 20 or 30 and expanded the thing, and we ended up using it in the Archdiocesan Congress, the theme of which was the Year of the Priest and the Eucharist. So this year it's going to be the theme of vocations. Now this particular Eucharistic Congress has 30,000 people in attendance. And so this thing was shown during the offertory, actually, of that Congress. So that was pretty cool. The audience was way beyond what I had originally thought.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up soon. But for our audience members who'd like to see the images, they can do so at thesehandsbmj.com. Is that correct?
Correct.
So thank you so much for being with us, Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Very fascinating and beautiful images.
They are, and I do think hands tell a story. Sometimes, like, you can just say the eyes are the window to the soul. You know, the hands of a person, as they were saying about the older priest there, I think really can kind of explain someone's life. And I know that on my grandfather's gravestone, for example, he died when he was 83, there are 3 etchings that my aunt had actually drawn, one holding a hammer, because he was a mason, that symbolizes work, which is something he did very much. One holding a bocce ball, which was play, because he loved to play bocce, and then the other one was holding a rosary for pray. And to see that, because he had these massive hands, it tells a story, I think, and every time that you go there and look at it, I know when I go to the grave, for example, it reminds you of him in much the same way that it evokes something very prayerful and deep within these priests.
Yeah, and the hands have been something that that artists have been, you know, trying to capture for years and years and years. And if you've ever tried to draw, I can't draw anyway, but like if you've ever tried to paint or draw hands, very, very difficult. And these images just capture them there as they are, but in the way that he goes about it, the lighting and everything else, and just his style is very, very cool. And you get the sense of what the priest is there doing. It's very nice.
And his other projects are fascinating too.
Yeah. Well, we've posted some more over on our blog with links to Stephen Golder's photographs. Just head on over to currentsny.net, click on Riding the Wave. Stay with us. There's much more Currents ahead. When we return, they may look young, but they're a big part of the church's ministry.
It's given me a new perspective on what the Mass is. I'm actually listening and hearing what they're saying, and it's a good feeling.
Well, finally tonight, what happens when you put young people in charge of organizing a Sunday Mass? Sounds a little scary maybe, but you're about to find out, actually.
Not chaos. Immaculate Conception Parish in Astoria hosted a youth mass last weekend with teens and young adults involved in virtually every aspect of the liturgy. We stopped by to check it out.
My friend, Michael Maloney, he told me that they were going to start a youth mass since we don't have any here in the MAC. And he said that he wants more teenage children and teenagers to attend mass because there's not that many coming to church.
Once a lot of kids graduate, parents might not make them go to church or may not, you know, say give them more freedom to do what they want, which is great. But nobody's keeping them grounded here. And we wanted to kind of say, hey, your friends are still going. We're still involved here. It's a place where they could still come and share in that faith that they went through for so many years.
We kind of like converged on the same idea. They wanted to actually put a Mass together themselves in the sense that they wanted to be the Eucharistic ministers, the lectors, etc. So we put together the idea of a youth Mass, which they did the music, they do everything themselves. I thought it was a great idea.
We kind of went out to our immediate group and said, all right, this is what we want to do. This is what we've been asked to do.
was definitely a different experience managing nearly every aspect of the Mass. It helps us appreciate the Mass in general and what it does for our community, and to present the way we like to see it onto the community and to see a great response is really amazing.
We really put so much of ourselves into it, into the preparation for it, that we enjoy the Mass that much more. It's the first time for our generation that we've been able to run a Mass ourselves. We do the readings and we sing and, you know, we hold events after. It's just more inclusive for us.
I've experienced a renewal of my religion. I hadn't been going to Mass a lot in high school and college, but just being at the Masses and playing, it's given me a new perspective on what the Mass is. I'm actually listening and hearing what they're saying, and it's a good feeling.
We've come a long way. I mean, we used to have like 2-3 people, now we have like 50. So it's come a long, long way. Our music has gotten better. I mean, I think the youth gets really excited when they hear something that's a little out of the ordinary, like something a little more with the drums, with the piano, with everything. It's nice.
We also have events afterwards, like for example in the movie nights, or we also have sports. After the Mass, we go play volleyball or basketball. So we interact with the kids.
I was going to go to 1 o'clock Mass with my parents, but I told her I was going to go with my friends today, and she was happy. People might not show up because they're just used to going to 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock Mass. They just go with their parents, but it's cool because after this, then you could just hang out, watch a movie.
Anything to do with youth ministries, you have to build slowly. They're going to be the future of the church. They're feeling more and more comfortable in their roles, and I think that's going to be good for the future.
Certainly looking toward the future here with the youth. We have the World Youth Day theme song, and we have this youth Mass. And, you know, I think any time that you can get people involved, including younger people, in whatever it is that the output and, you know, is going to actually be, you're going to end up with something that more people can glom onto and really take ownership of and really enjoy. And like she said, it went from 2 to 50. That's a huge improvement.
Yeah, and obviously a lot going on too at Immaculate Conception Parish in Astoria, because you saw the events happening there at the beginning of the show and at the end of the show tonight. It's almost like a theme show. Right. Monsignor Ferraresi is everywhere, you know. He's got to, we got to start paying him or something.
Canon law to youth masses, and it's nice to see again, you know, that they are bringing in more opportunities for the youth to get involved, like they said, because like the story I did on the Martini Mass in Manhattan and the you know,
the Jazz Mass,
and all that, and stuff. Yeah, the Martini Night rather. I keep saying that. Yeah. Martinis on
not during the Mass.
That would be afterwards.
That's afterwards. Yes.
All right. Well, that is it for tonight. Coming up tomorrow, it is Veterans Day, and we will meet a few very special veterans and hear some thoughts on the day from Bishop DiMarzio.
In the meantime, though, remember we're always online at currentsny.net. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you have a story idea, you want to drop us a line, you can do that. Our email address is dropusaline, that's all one word, at currentsny.net. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night.